Hello and welcome to the D
and A of Home Interiors, the podcast which is all about empowering you to make confident interior and furnishing decisions for your home. I'm Audrey, founder of Audrey Whelan Interior Design.
And I'm Deirdre, founder of youfurnish.com, such 100 plus furniture retailers on one website. The DNA of Home Interiors is proudly sponsored by checkatrade.com. If you need help with your next home improvement project, you can search from over 39,000 recommended, vetted and monitored trades on checkatrade.com. So I'm delighted to welcome today Abigail Ahern to the DNA of Home Interiors podcast. Abigail is an influential tastemaker, somebody who has defined the visual landscape with her unique style and approach. Trend-setting designs that have become synonymous with glamour, eclecticism, and wit. Abigail, welcome.
Thank you.
We are delighted to have you on the podcast today. And I suppose the first question is, where did it all begin?
Wow, zillions of years ago, actually. I think it all began, I used to work on the picture desk for Terence Conran's publishing house and found lots of interior images to go in all of his beautiful books, and then had the opportunity to go to America and decided, because I'd found images for so long, interiors images, I wanted to see if I wanted to get into the interior design industry, which, to cut a really long, boring story short, I did. So I started working for an architectural company out there and got really obsessed with interiors, lived there for, I think, maybe just under 4 years, and then came back here and kind of did interior design, opened a store, and then it's kind of snowballed from there, really.
Abigail, just thinking about retail, I must say my very first memory of coming across you is strolling along Upper Street, going into the shop, which I believe is the first shop you had, possibly?
Second
is it
shop.
Second? Wow,
yeah.
Okay, so I'm really intrigued to know where the first one was. But certainly I can remember walking along. I lived quite close by Upper Street in Islington at the time, and I think the shop was called Atelier Abigail Ahern.
And, it was at the time, yeah.
Yeah, and seeing, this amazing space really kind of stand out along that street with the dark grey walls and pops of neons and lots of plants and big urns. The shop, I feel, has stuck, hasn't it? These dark interiors have really, really stuck with us. Do you think?
Well, to address your first question, we had a tiny little shop, a stone's throw away from where you found us, for about 18 months. And that was super, super tiny. And it wasn't until I kind of moved into that store on Upper Street that I started to have a little bit more confidence with retail, because I'd never done retail before. And I started to experiment with colour a little bit, which I hadn't done in the previous shop. So it really began with me just painting out a small wall in that store, because that store was actually quite small, in a dark inky hue, and seeing the reaction of the customers and how all the products, when they were put against this beautiful swampy inky dark hue, just stood out a lot more so than a paler colour. So as soon as I kind of did one wall and received this incredible reaction, the whole store went in it. And then that kind of slowly snowballed. I mean, nothing kind of happened overnight, but it slowly snowballed. And then Debenhams came along and then loved it and loved the vibe, and then offered me this licensing deal. And then I got a book deal. And it was really all just doing something, I guess, in retail, which is quite homogenized. People try to appeal to so many customers because you want to appeal as greatly as you do. I was coming from it for a different angle, thinking my store is relatively small and I can't appeal to everybody. So I'm just going to appeal to my kind of customer, like that I would buy into. And that's kind of been my brief to myself forever and a day. If I love it and would want it in my house and think it's beautiful, then hopefully and luckily other people do so too. So I just kind of got rid of all the kind of noise that if you work, and I used to work for, big retailers as a stylist, they have to have so many parameters in place. But I was my own business, I could do what I wanted. So colour was an easy way to literally inject personality, and the same goes for homes, into a room that was very small and didn't have great big high ceilings and tons of light coming in, and it just literally gave us a personality. It's one of the most transformative things that you can do in your home or in retail is paint something a color, because everything just looks amazing if you get the color right. Obviously everything looks amazing against it. So that was really how it all began in the paint world and going dark. And then of course I started to get quite bored with the colors on the market, because I see a lot of things in my head. I see products in my head that I want to design, or colors in my head that I want to design. So then that kind of led to us doing our own paint range and experimenting a bit more and going even swampier and darker and murkier. So it's all kind of been gradual. I mean, some people think it's just happened overnight, but it's been a long kind of process. But that's how it all began, really. The store was a really great vehicle for testing out colours and people's reactions.
Yeah, because that store on Upper Street, what year are we talking about when you say about putting that dark wall in?
That must have been at least, let me think, at least 10 years ago.
Wow.
So do you have a favourite colour, Abigail?
It's really hard when you actually produce colors, because every new color is like your favorite color. So it's funny, because as I've sort of, every color in the store and in my house is dark. But as I've kind of, and particularly during COVID, as I've kind of really analyzed color, because obviously I've been here a lot more, I've really gone for colors that are dark but warm, as opposed to colours that are dark and cold. So earthy colours that kind of reflect the outside, that have a bit of warmth to them, as opposed to quite icy cold colours. But, you know, colour, as I tell everyone in my design classes and in the store who come in, colour is so personal. What I might like, you might hate. I'm not right, you're not wrong. It's just, you have to kind of follow your own reaction to colour, because it's incredibly personal. But that's a good thing, because then that makes your space incredibly unique. So I think with colour, I mean, one of the biggest things I think with colour is that if people shopped their wardrobe more and see what clothes they would automatically put on, you can almost put that colour on your walls and love it, which sounds very scary, I know, because my wardrobe is full of black, which is probably why I live in quite a dark space. But when you think about colour with fashion, and we take more risks, but when it comes to interiors, we're a lot scareder to put it on our wall, and yet it only takes, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours to paint a wall, and it could be the most transformative thing and the cheapest thing that you've done to your house. So I'm really colour kind of obsessed.
And Abigail, I believe you're bringing out your own range of paints. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've got our own range, about 20 paints, but we're just about to launch another collection, which is a little bit more, obviously very dark, but quite inspired by the Australian outback. So there's lots of kind of really browny, pinky hues that just have such warmth to them. And that should be in about a month's time.
Brilliant. And Deirdre and I were actually intrigued to ask you if you'd been looking at the new Dulux colour of the year that was announced the other day, which is Brave Ground. So we were so curious to know what you would think.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's terrible, but I never look at Dulux colour of the year, because I don't really think there should be a colour of the year, because it's making colour be a very trend-led thing. And when I paint something in my store or in my house, I don't want to paint it again in 3 years' time. I don't think colour, unlike kind of fashion, should be hot or not. I think colour should be decided upon if you love it or not. And you shouldn't have to think, this season it's this colour and next year it's this. I mean, it would just drive you mad. So I never look at trends when it comes to colour. I just have to literally follow what feels good to me.
So you mentioned that your colour of paints that are coming out are inspired by the Australian outback. Have you been to the Australian outback? And it's sort of, you said something earlier where you mentioned that it's what you see in your head and all these designs. Like where do they come from? Or do you know where they come from? Is it stuff that you've like sort of seen and collated and then it sort of forms? Or is it sort of more random? So sort of wondering whether your life experiences bring all that together, or where do you think your design?
It's quite interesting. It is quite random. I mean, I will sometimes be somewhere, and then like in a, I don't know, nice cafe, e.g., and then I'll see a particular surface, and then an image will jump into my head of what I could make out of that materiality, for example. Or Australia, I know quite well. I go there quite a lot. Pre-COVID, we ran our international masterclasses there. I do quite a lot for a big trade show called Decor and Design in Melbourne. My family live there. My extended family live there. So I'm quite familiar with Australia, and they have this great kind of sensibility. It's very relaxed, their interiors, which is what I kind of gravitate towards. So I think the more that I drill into, I suppose with the paint, and not just the paint, with everything really, nature really inspires me, whether that's color palettes or whether that's materials. So because nature has just like the most incredible color palette, and it's such a good reference point for me to then think, oh, I love, and particularly when I drill into, I'm going warm but brown and earthy, immediately makes me think of Australia. And that kind of baked clay, earthy kind of colors. So then I'll start drilling into, things like that. So I think pre-COVID, travel was a huge inspiration. But I think just even walking the dogs in the park, and I might see I might see a leaf that's moldy and a really amazing green, and I'll bag it and pick it up and then send that to the factory and go, can we please make a color that looks like this? I mean, they think I'm mad, but can we please make a color that looks a bit moldy green? And we'll kind of mix around with it. So yeah, lots inspires. I just think that when you kind of follow your heart, and this didn't come easily because in the beginning I didn't really have as much confidence as I do now to even think that other people would love it as much as me. Because when I first kind of did introduce these swampy inky hues, it took, although it kind of went around the world and the house got shot and it was amazing for the business, lots of people were like, oh God, that's going to be out of fashion, within a year. But my whole point is, I don't care if it is. I mean, it isn't, it's just gained more and more momentum, but you can't really look upon interiors as being in and out of fashion. You should literally just buy things in your space that you want to have for a very long time, not season-led, trend-led, etc., etc.
Yeah, the same people would never be able to buy any outfits for their wardrobe if it would be out of fashion within a year. Don't know what they wear.
I know. I think this correlation between the wardrobe and the home is one I'm seeing mentioned more and more. And I guess for a lot of people, it probably does come down to confidence, doesn't it? Where you can maybe be more confident with the vibrant colour in an outfit because you don't need to wear it every day. Whereas if it is a more adventurous choice for your home, you do feel like it's this bigger commitment.
Totally.
Yeah. So what would you say around the sort of confidence area of, making decisions for your home?
I think the easiest thing to do when it comes to gaining confidence is to literally start. So you don't have to paint a massive wall in a colour that you're slightly unsure of whether it'll work or not. You could paint an alcove. You could paint a small feature wall. Painting a wall, and I'm actually saying this from experience because I've done it 5 million times in this house. Painting a wall takes an hour. It's just an hour of your time. If you hate that color, you can paint it back within an hour. So in 2 hours, you can literally return it to how you want it, or you could have something so magical, it will make you change everything. When I began with this dark color business, I said to my husband, I'm only just going to paint this one small wall in a dark color. And that was it. But how it made me feel, how things reacted from it, just made all the other colours in the house, which happened to be white, in my opinion, just look quite flat. So when you start, I guess my rambling point is that when you actually start and you see what happens, you get more confidence to go to the next thing.
So you've mentioned COVID and that warmth coming back into homes and people spending more time. You've recently reopened the shop. What have you been hearing from customers maybe around how they're changing their attitude towards the home? Has COVID had an impact on them?
I think COVID has had a massive impact on them. And I think because we were all locked in for a very long time, we analysed our homes more than we've ever analysed them before. So we're seeing, it's funny because we're actually finding that the store is busier now than it was before. And I'm not sure whether that's because, well, I know it's because people want to have a really cozy home. The thing about interiors, whether it doesn't matter where you live in the world or what size your room is, I think we all crave sanctuaries from the outside world and pieces that feel really tactile and make us feel comforted. So we're having a lot of people coming in and buying throws and cushions and wooden bowls, things that you can almost see the hands that made them, that gives their home kind of this sense of just cocooningness, really. So I think when we've all been locked in, we're literally drilling into our homes, aren't we? And going, that corner's a bit bland, I need to do something, or that wall's a bit boring, I should paint it. So I think, and also I think because not everybody is going to be returning to work on a full-time basis, and home offices are now morphing into the dining rooms and bedrooms, it's really important, because it's okay to work at home for like 12 weeks and manage, but if we're all working at home more, even me, I'm not so much based in the store, we just want the areas that we are in and spending multiple time in to be as cozy and cocooning and sanctuary-like as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's a real reflection probably that most people have. You know, one of my things is actually there's nothing better than being on the sofa when it's pelting rain outside and you can really hear it, but you just feel so safe in your spot. And if you've got that throw that you can, you know, cuddle up with, there's something about the dark evenings that I enjoy all the seasons. I wouldn't want to live someplace that doesn't have the seasons, but you know, I'm not looking forward to the winter because I just think about, you know, those lamps, how you can make it cozy in the evening and that cuddle up. So that's really interesting to hear that that's where people are sort of, you know, heading to.
Yeah.
Quick shout out for our sponsor, checkatrade.com. Search recommended tradespeople online with checkatrade.com.
I think actually coming back on that point is we do quite a lot of business in Scandinavia where the light in the winter is very reduced. And I am so blown away when I go over there in the winter. So the light is really fading around 2:30 in the afternoon, but you wander around the little streets and you peer into people's homes and they're so snug and they're so cozy, and it's candlelight and it's textiles and it's cushions and it's inky paint that it makes you kind of want to go in. So I'm very much like you. I never think, oh God, it's winter, how depressing. I embrace it because I think it's a state of mind. And also I don't want to live somewhere where it's always sunny. I mean, actually half the time I do, but most of the time I don't.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes me think, you know, quite often I've found over the years that people would be striving to almost, you know, make their spaces lighter and brighter, even when, you know, it might be a room that doesn't get that much daylight, even on the sunny days. And then you think how much of the year is really, really dark in this country anyway, that, you know, the logic behind actually embracing the kind of the deeper tones and the darkness and making it cozy and then illuminating it, you know, in a very atmospheric way can work so well.
Exactly.
And Abigail, when you mentioned earlier about taking a lot of your inspiration from nature, I was reminded about you speaking previously about the faux-botanicals, which I think has become a bigger part of your business. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the faux-botanicals have come, they really are the largest part of our business, which happened incredibly accidentally and was never really planned. When we moved into the store that you walked into a number of years ago, we wanted to put flowers in it to kind of accentuate areas, dining tables, little consoles, etc., etc. It wasn't possible to go to the flower market every week and spend hundreds of pounds on flowers. So my sister, who recently at that time, and we've been working together for 15 years now, left the world of floristry, in which she was very well known in, and she worked for some incredible brands like Jane Packer and McQueen's and Wild at Heart, and came full-time onto the business. She said, well, let's just do faux. We can put faux in there. And so we bought it from a middle guy and put some faux botanicals in there. And we just did it for display. We didn't ever think of selling them. And then lots of customers wanted to buy them. And so then we kept buying more and more. And Jam would say, I'm so cross because all these amazing stems that I used to work with in the real flower world, I can't get as faux. So then we had this crazy idea of producing them ourselves, which took a long time to kind of find a factory and to make them feel very foraged and wild. And originally we just ordered them from the factory for our store and our customers. And then I guess the world of social media, we started getting a lot of attention. And then Heels asked us to set up a faux flower cabin. And then Gweneth Paltrow walked by and put something on her blog. And then lots of celebrities in the States started buying in. And then the anthropology chain started ordering them. And now we wholesale them to stores all over the world and we retail them. And it's literally bonkers because we have containers and containers and containers coming in. And I think the reason that they've done quite well is before we kind of went down this foraged organic wild route, they were quite uptight and bright and plasticky, and everything is hand painted, including dead bits. So our factories they don't really have many customers that actually insist on dead bits painted on the leaves, because most customers want shiny green and very bright, and we're like, no, more dead. So they get quite they sort of know us now because it's been so many years, but they're like, oh god, she wants it to look even deader. Oh god, there's a lot of this going on, but it just makes it feel so realistic. And we try and follow the rhythms of the season, and so in the winter months we'll be like quite mossy and branchy and bare branches and moss and ivies and all of that kind of stuff and berries. And then I'll put that away when the season's over. And then all the summer stuff will come in, which is a lot more garden flowers, for example. So we kind of stick to this palette, which is reduced and muted. There's not 3 million SKUs. So everything has been designed to go with everything. But it feels like you might be strolling through a forest and there's a catkin and there's an amazing branch of willow that you would just put in your house. So we try and make them look as realistic as we possibly can. And it takes a lot of work, and it is exhausting because we are so exacting with the colours, because the colours are so key. If you paint it a wrong colour, it can just look really terrible. But it's one of the proudest things I think we've done.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so all the plants that I see in your home, like on Instagram and all these wonderful videos and photos you post up, are most of those faux then?
Everything,
yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
There isn't one real.
Yeah, they do look so real.
I kill every plant, so I don't know how I managed to do it. Even when I try really hard, they still die. But I do remember those plasticky, very bright coloured flowers that just looked so fake and unrealistic. So, I do think that's amazing, because life's not perfect. It does have the dead bits. It, has the lumps and the bumps and everything like that. And I think that's where people are going back to more. We've all had.
The thing is, with everything looking perfect, and I say this from experience in America, where I had to design perfect rooms for clients, it feels too uptight. When you go into a room and you feel that you've got to take your shoes off and you've got to sit up straight and you've got to be really, polite. That is the worst kind of interior for me. So if you were to come through the door now, you guys, I'd want you to feel like you could plonk on the sofa, have a glass of wine, kick your shoes on the sofa. I've got dogs jumping everywhere. I don't want any interior or any botanical to feel perfect. I need it to feel natural and completely imperfect. As weird as that will sound to many people, I can't do perfect.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, because I think there's an awful lot of pressure, and it's been like highly publicized as well around airbrushing of models and everything like that. And I think it creates too much pressure, especially on young people, to try and aspire to this perfection it's not even possible because it's not real.
I know, you're right. Yeah.
I often feel I'm terrible. I do go into people's house and I always sit with my legs under me. So I'll come in and I'll sort of like have my leg underneath me, propping myself up. And I'm like, oh God, they're probably like, get your leg off my chair. But it's nice to feel like that. And if you go into a completely perfect room, I'm like, oh, I need to sit up straight and put my shoulders back. And
who's great at that? That whole Soho House chain where you walk in and you just plop on a comfy sofa next to a fire, and it just feels incredibly relaxed. They're so clever at, people think actually, which is a really good point, that the more relaxed it looks, the easier it is to create. It's the opposite. It's really easy to create uptight rooms. It's so easy because you're just following a rhythm. It's a bit like decorating by numbers. But to do this kind of relaxed look, it's like the no makeup look, isn't it? You want to look like you've just got yourself out of bed, but it's taken you 10 hours to look like that. That's how my interiors are.
And you've mentioned my favorite thing, fire.
Yes, same.
There is nothing better than a fire. And it's actually one of the key things that when I don't have one, obviously, in an apartment in London, but whenever I go home, I'm like, Mum, can you light the fire? I'll be like, my flight's in at 5. Like, you know, we've got like a big sort of sitting room. So she's got to light it about 2 or 3 hours in advance so it can actually heat up the room, because we don't even have central heating in a sort of an old house over in Ireland. And it's one of those things, you just come in and I don't even sit on the seat. I sit on the mat on front of it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I just look at the flickering of it. I think it's amazing. And it's things like that, isn't it? That it's all about living, you know, you kind of the nicest cheer, but it's those elements that come together, be it looking at the flowers that you just get joy from, flickering of the fires, the sort of the flames dance, all of that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite sort of design element that you would sort of always put in a room or in a house?
I kind of suppose it depends in which room I'm talking about. So actually, I lie. I do. If thinking about all the rooms here, every single room, and obviously this kind of depends where you live, and it's slightly more difficult if you live in a hot country, always rugs, because rugs for me add such instant coziness. So no matter whether it's the hallway, even the kitchen, the bathroom, even the landings, which are super, super, super tiny, have some kind of covering over it, because it just gives it this other level of layering. And I'm pretty obsessed with layering, because it's a bit like clothes, I guess. But the more layers that you add to a space, the more intrigue. And I almost think rugs are like one of your foundation pieces. And people think that rugs are quite hard. But I think that my trick with rugs is, if you're going for quite a big rug, I would tend to avoid a flat, solid colour, because it can read a little bit carpet-esque. So if I'm going for a big rug, it either has to be super shaggy or textural, or have some kind of pattern in, and then that adds pizzazz. But rugs can literally change a space. And they don't have to be big rugs, like mats on landings or runners. I use runners a lot in big spaces. Just give you... I want to almost think of them like a herb or a spice. They just add a little bit of pizzazz to whatever room you're in. So yes, good question. Rugs are my foundation piece.
I think things like that are great as well, aren't they? Because it's not just the visual impact, it's also the tactile nature of sort of feeling a change of what you're walking on. And if it's, you know, beside a bed or beside a sofa, then areas where maybe you're more likely to be in your bare feet or have your socks off. So thinking about all the senses, not just, you know, the visual.
Yeah, exactly. And also the thing with rugs is they're so movable. They can, whether you move, wherever you go in the world, you can pick them up, you can take with them. So when you're buying something that you love, you don't swap them out every couple of years. You know, you keep them forever.
Yeah, no, I love that. I've been able to sort of change the rooms that you have them in, and you can sort of create a whole different look. So I was recently given a present of a painting. It's a painting of a mountain called Ben Bulben, which is sort of an iconic mountain where I come from. What is the item that you've had for the longest that, you know, you've taken from some memory? Maybe it was in New York you got something, or as a youngster that you had something that's the oldest and most treasured possession maybe that you have.
It was actually the first thing I ever bought for this house. So it was 20 years ago, and the house, it's kind of a 4-story house, and it was in a complete dilapidated state. And we kind of took the brick wall out and extended it and had this wall of glass. So by the time that was done, we literally had no money. I mean, literally no money to live off, because we'd majorly overspent on the house. So I think we had no furniture, because I had moved in with Graham and all his furniture was terrible. So I skipped the whole lot of it or took it to charity or whatever. And he won't mind me saying, but he's got no taste. Anyway, so we had no furniture. So we had this little bit of money from Graham's parents. I think it was £700. And Graham was like, right, can you just, because he was busy on the build, can you just like literally run to IKEA or anywhere and buy a sofa? So I was on my way to IKEA with all good intentions to kind of get a sofa. And I happened to pass this gallery, and they had this concrete rocking chair in the window. And I'm like, oh my God, that chair is amazing. And it happened to be £700. So I'm like, I'm going to get this chair. Never mind the sofa. I'll not have a sofa for ages. And so I came back with this chair. Well, I couldn't actually carry it myself. The guys helped me put it in my boot, came back. Graham literally couldn't speak because we had no more money to buy any furniture. And for a year, one of us was on the floor and one of us was on the chair, and we had to switch which night. But the chair was concrete. It wasn't even comfortable. And we lived like that for a year because all our money had gone. And anyway, and I still have it to this day and I still love it.
Wow, that's such a good story.
But it was, after about month 2, it was actually a little bit annoying because it was cold and there was a concrete chair or a floor and that's all we had. And it was literally for a year. Literally. But I love it. I love it.
I can just imagine Graham. What did you tell his parents?
They weren't too happy, I can tell you. No one was happy with me. My parents were mad that I'd done that to Graham's parents. Graham was mad because he didn't have a sofa. The only person that was happy was me. But then after all those months, I was really grumpy because it was really hard.
I can just imagine his parents are like, I can't believe my poor Graham has to sit on this hard chair. It's not
Exactly. No, they were very, very mad with me. But
you're probably so happy now that you made that decision all those years ago.
Yeah, because I've kept it forever. I mean, I know I keep going on about it, but I think that when you're buying pieces that really resonate and you love, you don't want to get rid of them. Like, I'm never going to get rid of that chair. I don't necessarily sit on it. It's like a sculptural piece, but it can go indoors, outdoors. It's gone through every single room of this house. And, it's gone from the bedroom to the bathroom. Now it's in the living room. I love it. I'm never going to ever get rid of it.
Yeah, that's the great thing about pieces like that, isn't it? That you can move around, or if you did move house, whereas often with the bigger item, it just won't work anywhere else.
Yeah.
Abigail, I was so curious to ask you about your sculptures, because I've seen more and more of these appear. The latest one being Vera, I think, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. And so, I was really keen to know about the background to these and how that all originated.
Well, we started. So for me, I sort of give myself I have this inner voice, which is quite an annoying inner voice because it's constantly talking to me in my head. But I need pieces that kind of make my heart skip a beat when it comes to decorative accessories. So I was having quite a hard job because not everything that we stock I design. We buy from third party as well as our own label. And I was having quite a hard job finding sculpture that was affordable but made the heart skip a beat. And I started looking at all the paintings in my house, and I didn't really think about the paintings that I bought in my house because some of them are from flea markets and have cost £5, and some of them are from galleries and cost a bit more, but they're all quite figurative. So I started going around and thinking, oh, that's really interesting. I've never really, because I kind of just buy from the heart, I've never really analysed what I like about art. I just know if I like something, and everything has got this kind of figurative quality to it. And then that sort of led me down the path thinking, well, I'm obviously very drawn to figurative. Maybe we can produce this figurative range of sculpture that would do the same as my art does, which is literally make my heart kind of skip a beat. So we did, and then they sell incredibly well, and then we wholesale them. But the thing is, whether it's our accessories or anyone accessories, but when you're putting pieces that sort of, I almost want to say, have a narrative or tell a story or make your eye go to them, they lift whatever surface they're on. Like they elevate the coffee table, they elevate a shelf, they elevate a console, rather than just having, I don't know, a whole row of vases and a lamp. The odd little decorative accessory just kind of takes it to another level. So I started to become quite fascinated with what makes a good decorative accessory, and these are they.
I think why I'm really drawn to them is the fact that they're people. So, there's lots and lots of other objects out there, aren't there, that you could choose as a decorative accessory. But the fact that they're little people, but sort of quite fun looking little people as well. And
exactly.
Particularly just, over the last few months, I don't know, probably feel more drawn to, the fact that you sort of see less people. So I wondered if there was anything behind that.
I think it's just, but I think the people connection is really interesting because I think that with people you're automatically kind of connected to, aren't you? And rather than it just being some kind of abstract thing, when it's actually a person, you're quite connected to it. So I also agree that if there's kind of everything that I try and do that we produce has to have some kind of connection. I'm not interested in just putting an object out there because I want it to sell millions. I have to feel there's this connection to what we're doing, to what's in the house, to how people respond to it. And people respond, I mean, me particularly, to sculpture because they just elevate things.
Yeah, and I think the fact that, they very clearly work so well with the faux botanicals, the types of paint colours you're talking about. So presumably then it's easier for a customer to then be able to visualise kind of a number of items working together.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is completely planned, but whatever kind of goes into production generally has this really reduced palette. It's not super colourful, which means that the thing is, I have a house and a store that has a lot of stuff in it. And if everything were a different colour, it would read as such a hot mess. It would just be chaotic on the brain. So a lot of the pieces are very muted, which means that you can easily add them into your space, whether it's traditional or whether it's boho or no matter what your style is. And it sits in there really beautifully, and it doesn't cause this whole eye to go, oh my God, that's yellow, that's red, that's green. So they're all quite muted, which means that they're very easy to kind of introduce into a space.
So true. Abigail, I'm conscious of time, that we're coming close to the end of our time together. But I had one final question that I'd like to ask you, which is just going back to you talking about, the ideas and that things sort of pop into your head and finding the leaf that then could become the inspiration, to do with the green colour. But, my question is, how do you record your ideas? Because it sounds like your ideas have a really quick turnaround and, you get inspired by so many things around. So do you have a process? Like, is it notebooks? Is it, Instagram? How do you record those ideas so that you can put them?
Well, it drives my family mad. It drives Gemma mad, who's my sister, and Graham mad, because I'm constantly going, and let's do this, and let's do this, and now we're going to do this. And Graham just finds walks one of the most unrelaxing things ever, because I'm always looking at puddles, taking pictures of lakes. He just wants to go on a normal walk, have a normal conversation, and I'm on my phone going, hold on, I have to get to the bottom of this puddle because it's a really good colour, and also my sister, my parents, nobody really wants to invite me to their houses or ever go out with me. So it's actually quite sad. But I document it by I take so many photos. And also the thing is that not everything I see or comes on as idea will ever, so many things go into sampling stage and then I'll reject them just because they haven't kind of worked. So you almost have to have more ideas than you've ever had, because there's only a small amount that will actually work. Sometimes, like I had this amazing sculpture, but by the time we'd finished it and the material, we would have to have retailed it at over £1,000, which is kind of ridiculous. So then that gets binned. So until you actually work through the process to know, what's the cost, what's the margins, are people going to like it? So there's a lot of ideas that I might think are amazing that then turn into nothing. It's such a small percentage that then turns into something, but I almost need that huge board of things. But yeah, my phone is kind of next to me all the time.
That sounds good. I think I would probably enjoy the walk, I have to
say. You'd never get back from the walk, I don't think. You'd be like,
that's the
where
trouble.
Are the ladies? Sending out the search party and you're still taking pictures as the light changes.
I know, it's quite frustrating for quite a lot of people.
Yeah, it depends which way your brain is wired, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, good old brainstorm. And I think definitely true. I think anybody working in the creative industries will respond to that. The idea of, you really do need to collect way more ideas than you end up being able to transform into reality. True. Yeah, so Abigail, it was absolutely fascinating talking through all of that with you today. Thank you so much for being our guest.
You're welcome. It was lovely talking to you guys. Thank you for inviting me.
If you enjoyed our podcast, we would be delighted if you could rate, review and subscribe on your favourite podcast provider. This will help others who are seeking home and furnishing advice and inspiration discover the DNA of home interiors. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter at the DNA of Home Interiors.
If you are looking for inspiration and help in designing your home interiors, take a look at Audrey Whelan's masterclasses on audreywhelan.com/events. And don't forget to check out youfurnish.com, a search and comparison website which helps connect people with amazing furniture from over 100 retailers. We designed it to solve the problem we and thousands like us faced furnishing our homes. And now we are really excited that everyone can search, discover, compare and shop for their home all in one place.
Thank you to our sponsor checkatrade.com for their support in bringing this episode to you. And most importantly, thank you all for listening today.
We hope you can join us next time.